Good afternoon, Modesto Junior College, and welcome to the Fall 2025 Speech Night. My name is Professor Ryan Guy, and it is my distinct privilege to welcome you all to the event. For the last 11 years, I've had the honor of being one of the two coaches of the Modesto Junior College Speech and Debate team. Tonight, we've got an excellent show planned for you, and you'll get an opportunity to meet some of the most hard-working, dedicated individuals that I've had the opportunity to mentor and coach. Before we can get to the show, I just have a couple of quick logistical things and a couple of quick thank yous, and then we'll get things rolling. First and foremost, I know most of us have cell phones in our pockets. For both respect to the performers as well as their safety, please turn those to silent and put them away so that they do not interrupt the show. Second, my guess is there's probably a couple of people here who are here as part of a class assignment for your communication class. If that is the case, your professor should have given you directions on what they wanted you to do. If they didn't, or maybe you just missed that announcement, as you walked in the door, we gave everyone one of these programs. Inside the program is a critique sheet that gives you a spot where you can jot down some notes and do some ranking and evaluation of both the speech, performance, and debate events. If you're not sure what you're supposed to do, that's probably a pretty good bet. But if your professor gave you other directions, listen to your professor. It tends to work things out well for that. All right, with that, I just have a couple of quick thank yous. First and foremost, I have to thank my team. This is an amazingly hardworking group of individuals. We just returned from our first competition of the semester at San Francisco State for the Golden Gate Opener, where a dozen of these folks scrapped against other debaters and speakers all over the state of California and even some folks from out of state, and did exceedingly well for their first tournament. But they showed up tired and wrecked after the weekend and immediately dove into speech night rehearsals. And so just to give them a big round of applause to thank them for their work. Secondly, I've got to thank the Communication Studies Department. I am biased, but I think I get to work in the best department in this college. My colleagues are amazing. They're always showing up to help us out, to point folks that might be interested in joining the team to us, to listening to speeches and giving advice, and they're just an amazing group of individuals. So I know it's a little weird to give your professors a round of applause too. My last two thank yous go to the folks that logistically make things happen. First, I need to thank the School of Arts, Performance, and the Humanities, from the individuals that work in our division office, Jacqueline, Cassie, and Ashley. They're some of the best administrative support staff we could ever hope for. These are the folks that help make sure that we get our students to tournaments, that vans actually exist, that we don't get left at airports and strange places. And I couldn't do any of this without their support or without the support of our dean, Rob Stevenson. So if you wouldn't mind giving those folks a round of applause for this. Lastly, I need to thank all of the unseen labor that isn't directly in front of us. To have amazing facilities like this one, it takes the hard work of our janitorial staff, of our folks that run the technology in back of the room, all of the folks that were running around for the hours today to make sure that our lights work and that our stage was clean. This is work that you don't get folks brought on stage for to get recognized, but it's important work that allows us to do what we do. So please, a round of applause for all those. All right, folks. So, the Modesto Junior College Speech and Debate Team is one of the oldest programs to exist on this campus. Right after the college got its start in 1921, a group of individuals gathered that following spring to form the first oratorical and debating society. And this was something that was pretty brand new and wasn't seen at a lot of colleges. But they got together and they started holding practice rounds, writing speeches, and having debate, and even began traveling to tournaments at places like what was then College of the Pacific and UC Berkeley to compete against fellow debaters and oratorical studies students. That tradition has persevered over the last 100 years, and the individuals that will grace the stage tonight are just a long line, at the end of a long line of the tradition that has lasted us through the turbulent times that have existed over the last century. And so, as you get an opportunity tonight to watch informative and persuasive speaking and impromptu speaking and oral interpretation and debate, and you look at these events, if you find yourself thinking like, that's something that I could be interested in, well, I'll let you in on a little secret. Many of the folks on the stage actually got exposed to competitive forensics sitting in the very same seats you are. So if after the show you find yourself interested, we're actively recruiting for the spring semester, and any of these individuals would love to tell you more about it. So feel free to bug them, ask them questions. We'd love to have you join us in the spring. Doing speech and debate can be an amazing opportunity. For me, it was completely life-changing in college. It's an opportunity to be able to travel to other colleges and universities and see other states, and to do so on the school's dime, which is a pretty cool opportunity. So I encourage you to check it out if it's up your alley. With that, I'm excited to get the show going. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to my partner in crime. Please give it up for Co-Director of Forensics, Professor Porter.
All right, good afternoon. I am so excited because I get to introduce you to all of the members of the MJC Speech and Debate team. So please join me in welcoming each team member to the stage, beginning with Sebastian Bailey, Kylie Bartell, Belle Beglinger, Dre Cajigas, Camille Clemmer, Sabrina Clendenin, Aiden Cook, Crowley Crump, Kira Ford, Monique Fuentes, Matthew Gutierrez, Avery Iglesias, Jennifer Magdaleno Garcia, Kenzie Mount, Seth Mundo, Joanna Noon, Hayden Oliveira, Aiden Remratton, Celeste Randall, Diara Salcedo Lopez, Lucas Santiago, Sharon Toppan, Amaya Torres, Emma Tran, and Tyler Wydell. All right, tonight our two masters of ceremony will guide you through the show. I'll now turn it over to Dre Cajigas and Kira Ford.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Dre Cajigas, and this is my co-MC, Kira Ford. Most people say that they fear public speaking because that it is worse than death. But some of these folks here are doing this by choice. So who knew that nerds could love adrenaline like that? Anyways, I'm just kidding, because we are going to have some real fun tonight, especially since we're kicking things off with an informative speech. This type of speech is meant to offer a well-rounded and objective explanation of the speaker's subject.
Alrighty, the very first speaker you will hear from tonight is Joanna Noon. This is her third semester on the team here. Let's take a moment and put our hands together as we welcome her to the stage.
On a cloudy afternoon, you jump on your motorcycle and you head to a friend's house, but then a distracted teen hits you dead on, shattering more than 20 of your bones and severing your left arm. This nightmare Sean Melendi had to live May 5th, 2022. Enterprise in 2023, Dr. Matthew Carty at MIT Center for Extreme Bionics explained that miraculously, Melendi's muscle fibers remained intact at the site of amputation. This made Melendi a prime candidate for experimental procedure. You see, Dr. Carty and his team connected the surviving fibers of Melendi to the ability hand. Now Melendi can use his ability hand simply by thinking. The ability hand may sound straight from Star Wars, but as Alavere Health of 2024 stated, more than 5.6 million Americans live with limb difference. For them, the promise of this technology is very real. So, in a galaxy not so far, far away, we'll get a handle on what the ability hand is, get a grasp on how it works before reaching for its final implications. So, how did Melendi's story of tragedy turn into one of possibility? The answer begins with the ability hand's innovative design. You see, Dr. Adil Attar, he founded the Sonic Company and developed the ability hand, which Popular Mechanics has deemed as the most badass prosthetic in 2022. Forum Labs detailed its construction in another 2022 article, explaining that the main body is 3D printed from 1,500 resin. This makes it tough, impact resistant, thermal resistant, and it's also jam-packed with high-tech features. The ability hand is already compatible with most prosthetic devices of today and has a rechargeable high-capacity lithium polymer battery that can hold a 6 to 8 hour charge via USB-C, just like your phone. Even cooler, this prosthetic can even charge your phone. YouTube tech reviewer Marquez Brownlee stated that it has the fastest Bluetooth pairing he has ever used in a prosthetic. Additionally, this hand has touchscreen compatible silicone fingertips. In 2025, Jackson Chung of Tech Blog stated that this prosthetic is the first of its kind to offer multi-sensory feedback to simulate touch. How? Well, think of your residual limb like a PS5 controller with haptic touch feedback vibrations, or when you get a text during my speech. This hand uses similar vibrations to mimic touch against your residual limb. For example, there's Garrett Anderson. He's an Iraq War veteran who lost his limb to a roadside bomb. Today, he uses his ability hand to deadlift, tie his shoes, and most importantly, to hold hands with his daughter. In ABC 7 2024, Anderson said, "It's given me things that other prosthetics haven't been able to feel my daughter's hand, to touch her face." That kind of renewed ability isn't an accident. It's engineered. So, now that we understand what the ability hand is, we can take a closer look on how it works. First, let's examine how the hand functions. The hand is myoelectric, meaning there's EMG electrodes that stick to the user's skin and act as translators between your brain and your prosthetic. These sensors stand guard for any electrical impulses that come from flexing your residual limb and tell the hand, hey, catch that water bottle. And thanks to these sensors, they can gauge your grip pressure so you don't crush it. Another crucial feature is how the hand is attached. Typically, the ability hand is attached to a socket that fits over the residual limb. However, this can slip and slide during the day. And in 2025 Builder Nation interview, Dr. Attar stated a new version where he attaches the ability hand directly to the person's bone using titanium implants. This new procedure is happening right now in San Diego, restoring full range of motion without a socket or a sweat box attached to your arm. Beyond the hardware, this ability hand is fully customizable with the Psionic app. The app allows users and clinicians to modify EMG responsiveness, touch sensor responsiveness, and 32 grip sets. It offers intuitive control, versatile functionality, and sensory feedback, allowing users to cook, clean, or, wield a robotic hand like Luke Skywalker, something pure science fiction. right? Beyond the individual benefits, this also points us to something larger. So let's try to see what this prosthetic technology means for society as a whole. The ability hand stands out for three things: accessibility, future directions, and its applications for safety. When I began this research, it was too good to be true. What's the catch? I was pleasantly surprised. See, myoelectric arms are usually up to $100,000, if not more, without haptic touch. But Fox News reported in 2025 that the ability hand is closer to $15,000 to $20,000. Not only that, Medicare will actually cover the ability hand. And for those who still can't afford it, there's the Ability Hand Fund to make sure everyone has access without any personal cost. And the hand isn't just accessible. It's also taking us to exciting new directions. In 2023, 60 Minutes has shown that the Ability Hand can be connected directly to the brain, allowing users not only to control their new prosthetic, but feel real sensations through it. No vibrations required. This is thanks to a $100 million Department of Defense Pentagon project. Neuroscientist Sliman Ben-Smea's team at University of Chicago already made this happen for Brandon Presswood, a former crew worker. See, Brandon Presswood can identify individual finger stimulations blindfolded, describing it as a pleasant tingling. Finally, the Ability Hand has some exciting new applications regarding safety in manufacturing and in space. Mercedes-Benz told TechCrunch last year of their electronic humanoid, Apollo, armed with a hand, tackling their production line. This is amping up accuracy, efficiency, and reducing product waste while keeping their workers safe. Next stop, the moon. Yes, NASA is also using their Valkyrie robot armed with the Ability Hand and is set for space. Tech think tank Lucas Ziegler says this allows workers and astronauts alike to supervise remotely without risking life or limb in hazardous conditions, even in space. So today, we saw the revolutionary technology that is revolutionizing prosthetics for millions of people with limb difference. We saw the revolutionary technology behind the Ability Hand, how it works, and its future applications. While Luke Skywalker's cyberbionic glow-up was pure science fiction, the Ability Hand is very real. Disturbed father, not included. The Ability Hand bridges human and machine, restoring touch, independence, and human connection. CBS Boston reports that Sean Melendi is still an active outdoorsman. He's chopping wood and even racing kayaks. The Ability Hand proves that the future of prosthetics isn't science fiction. It's here, and it's profoundly human.
Wow, that was quite the gripping speech. I'm sure Luke Skywalker is looking at his shopping cart right now. Just made that up. Speaking of improv, the next speech you're about to hear is impromptu. This is a limited preparation event. In this speech, the speaker is given a set of random prompts and has only 2 minutes to prepare a 5-minute speech. Despite the time limit, the speaker is still expected to be organized and deliver the presentation with style.
Tonight's impromptu speaker will be Sabrina Clendenin. This is Sabrina's 3rd semester on the team, which means she's an expert. And so please join us in a big round of applause.
opening quotation.
Betty.
You, but my favorite show of the summer was The Summer I Turned Pretty. I was so excited for the third season to come out, and it gave us the finale that we were all hoping for. But leading up to that, we had to go through Belly, needing to choose between Jeremiah and Conrad. She was stuck in this love triangle, not knowing what to do. She struggled with this decision. She was seeing both arguments, not knowing what to do. But in the end, she succeeded. She made her choice. And that was an achievement in of itself. And that leads me to today's prompt that I received. You don't make it through your 20s without inflicting some damage. Otherwise, you haven't lived, by Gemma from The Summer I Turned Pretty. And I interpret this to mean that you need to struggle to succeed. And I agree with this. So we'll take a look at this through 3 lenses. First, just your average everyday person and how they struggle to succeed. Then through books, and even through adventurers. First, let's talk about our just ordinary citizen, Ariel Locke. Now, Ariel Locke lives in Massachusetts and she just wants to go to work. Now, she doesn't have a car, so she takes the train. Now, unfortunately, the Massachusetts transportation system, specifically the trains, are always late. And to fix this problem, it would cost $24 billion. Now, that's a lot of money. So, Ariel came up with her own solution. She thought to herself, well, I wouldn't be so mad if the trains were late if they just had a little personality, like some googly eyes. So the Massachusetts transportation system heard this protest and they saw it as a great solution. So today, if you go to Massachusetts and you look at their train, you'll see some wonderful googly eyes apologizing for being so late. Now, Ariel had to struggle. She had to struggle by being late for work almost every day, but that led to some success in the transportation department. It was that struggle that led to the achievement of having some very amazing trains in Massachusetts today. Next, let's take a look at a book, Fahrenheit 451. In this book, it centers around the main character who is a fireman. Now, firemen in this society aren't the ones like we see today. These firemen burn books. They start fires and sometimes leaving people in those fires with the books. Now, of course, our main character realizes that this is wrong. So he decides to defy the government. He saves books, he reads them, and he spreads that knowledge to other people. But that was not without struggle. That wasn't without obstacles. He had to fight his own government. He had to fight his coworkers in order to literally live and spread the word to others that this was wrong. But that led to others realizing that same truth that our main character realized, Education is important, books are important, and we need that message. He didn't struggle. He didn't have his achievement without struggle. Finally, let's talk about even how adventurers need to struggle to succeed. Now I'm talking about the one and only Francis Drake. No, you haven't heard of him? Okay, well, he was the first guy to circumnavigate the globe. He left England with 5 ships and only came back with 1. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like a big struggle to me. So, Francis Drake, he went on these 5 ships and he encountered dangerous obstacles such as storms on the sea and a loss of food. But in the end, he achieved his goal. He circumnavigated the globe and was the first person to do so. He was even knighted by Queen Elizabeth I. Francis Drake didn't achieve his success without that struggle. He needed that struggle to have that achievement. Today, I received a prompt. You don't make it through your 20s without inflicting some damage. Otherwise, you haven't lived, by Gemma from The Summer I Turned Pretty. And I interpreted this to mean that you need to struggle to succeed. So we took a look at that through 3 lenses of your average, everyday citizen, a book, and an adventurer. Belly had to choose. She struggled. She didn't know which person would lead her to the life that she always wanted, to the happiness that she always wanted. But it was because of that struggle that in our season finale, she finally realized what she wanted. It wasn't because she had an easy path to get there that she knew what she wanted. It was because of those obstacles. And I think we should take something away from that. We should learn that our obstacles are what leads us to our success. They're not what stops us.
Just to recap, she wrote all that in 2 minutes. I mean, I take longer deciding on the title for my speech. Moving that aside though, our next event for tonight will be a persuasive speech. This is a presentation that seeks to identify and describe an ongoing problem. The speaker uses emotion, logic, and credibility in an attempt to urge the audience to act on a controversial issue.
Tonight, Sasmundo will present their persuasive speech, which took 5th at the Golden Gate opener this season. Let's put our hands together as they take the stage.
At the height of the COVID pandemic, Samuel Brown was working as a sanitation worker. However, he didn't receive hazard pay or proper protective gear despite suffering from asthma. This made him especially vulnerable to the virus. When he brought up concerns and attempted to quit his sanitation job altogether, his supervisor told him no. As CBS reported in February of 2023, Samuel Brown was not a free worker. You see, Brown was part of a prison sanitation crew. Brown was, and still is, subjected to the last legal form of slavery in the United States. And of course, Samuel Brown is just one example. According to a 2025 article by the Economic Policy Institute, nearly 800,000 incarcerated individuals work as forced laborers within the United States. There is an urgent need to end forced slave labor in the U.S. First, we'll look at the history of forced prison labor. Second, we'll dissect who benefits from this practice before finally discussing our role in abolishing this system. Because forced labor without pay, choice, or protection isn't justice. It's exploitation. Let's begin by looking at the history of forced prison labor. The seeds of injustice was planted in the Constitution. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, but it left behind a loophole. It states neither slavery or involuntary servitude, except for punishment as a crime, shall exist within the United States. And this became the foundation of forced prison labor. Following the Civil Civil War, lawmakers swiftly began passing Black Code laws, which the National Constitution Center explained restored much of the slave system that existed prior to the war. The 2016 Netflix documentary 13th illustrates how these laws criminalize Black individuals for minor offenses. For example, vagrancy laws allows for the arrest of the person if they were unemployed or didn't have permanent residence. The result? This funneled Black Americans into the prison system, where they were then leased to private companies, a practice that Ella Terrell wrote about in a 2020 National Library of Congress article, calling it convict leasing. A 2022 ACLU reports that this practice still exists today, with incarcerated individuals producing $2 billion in goods and over $9 billion in services a year. Hundreds of thousands are crushed by the prison profit. Just take Richard Lilgross. He told NPR in 2023 that his PTSD made it extremely challenging to work in the high-stress environment of the prison kitchen. After asking multiple times to quit his job, his request was finally granted, only to be moved to a unit that drastically limited his yard time and only allotted for 1 hour of phone calls a week. Restrictions like these are usually reserved for extreme infractions. In Richard's case, it was punishment for advocating for his mental health. Now that we understand the history of forced prison labor, let's look at who benefits from this practice. There are two key stakeholders: corporations and the prisons themselves. First, the corporate benefits are staggering. Prison labor is cheap. There is no health care to pay for, no threat of a union, no vacation time, no sick leave. The Malta Justice Initiative, Last Access, August 8th of 2025, states that companies like Walmart, McDonald's, American Airlines, and others all use prison labor to keep their production costs low. But the prisons themselves turn a profit. People held in these facilities require food, clothing, and health care. Talk about a capitalist fever dream. The aforementioned article, Economic Policy Institute, states that the South demonstrates these practices most starkly, with Black men incarcerated at the highest rates worldwide and are often made to work without compensation. Alabama turns a striking example. According to the Business and Human Rights Resource Center, Alabama stipends 40% of the incarcerated workers' wages and charges them $5 a day to transport them to and from work. Whatever pennies are left over then goes towards commissary, where the prices are inflated 5 times higher, according to a 2024 investigation by The Appeal. In other words, the prison system is a hungry beast that will devour everything we feed it. Our people's physical health, their mental health, and their humanity. Yes, laws get broken. And yeah, people hurt others. But there are better ways to deal with these realities. So what does this look like in practice? We've talked about how the 13th Amendment allowed slavery to continue and how profit continues to drive it today. Next, let's discuss our role in putting the system to an end. First, we must take concrete steps. Samuel Brown, whose story you heard at the beginning of this speech, worked with Assemblywoman Lori D. Wilson on Proposition 6 in 2024. This proposition would have amended the Constitution to prohibit involuntary servitude. Unfortunately, these measures failed, but this shouldn't discourage us. According to a 2025 article by Cal Matters, the lack of failure around this proposition was due to indirect language and public awareness. However, Kayla Mokovich, the author of this article, states that with more direct language and a better public understanding, we can pass this proposition in 2026. Support her efforts by getting in contact with your local representative and stress the importance of passing this proposition. Additionally, speak with your wallet. Dr. Carter Goodwin Wilson, author of the 1933 book, The Miseducation of the Negro, states that African Americans often give money to institutions that don't have their best interest in mind. However, this is a lesson that's useful to all of us. Don't give your money to corporations that use prison labor. Walmart, McDonald's, and others all speak the language of profit. That's why boycotts work, because money talks. Just look at Bud Light. Following the 2023 conservative boycott, NPR reported that their earnings fell by 28%. However, these are not the end steps. These are the necessary first steps. In Angela Davis's 2003 book, Are Prisons Obsolete?, she states that once upon a time, the permanence of slavery was so widespread that even white abolitionists couldn't envision a world where black people were treated equally. However, she also states that popular attitudes shift with organized social movements. So, we need to organize. Movements today already exist, not just to enforce prison labor, but to put an end to the prison system entirely. Critical Resistance is an organization backed by Angela Davis with chapters across the country. They focus on 4 key aspects: prisoner solidarity, fighting imprisonment, political education, and resisting policing. I am a proud member of Critical Resistance, and we embody the Black Panther message of action over rhetoric. One way we do this is by facilitating workshops where we educate the public about their rights and the prison system. We also build community with programs like the Prisoner Mailing Solidarity Program. A few evenings a month, volunteers like myself answer letters from incarcerated individuals. Sometimes this looks like getting them in contact with a lawyer, and other times it's offering emotional support to remind them that they are not alone. You can be a part of these efforts. Today I have with me a QR code and a handout that will lead you to my website. There you can find more information about forced prison labor, how you can get in contact with your local representative, and how you can support organizations like Critical Resistance. Samuel Brown and Richard Lilgross are just 2 of the millions that have been affected by forced prison labor. Today we talked about the history of forced prison labor, how corporations and the prisons benefit, and we also discussed solutions that are aspirational and actionable. Even with my own activism, I cannot stand here and say that I have all the answers. Who of us really does in the span of 10 minutes? But what I can say is that with consistency and patience, we can make a difference. Frederick Douglass once said, "There is no man under the canopy of heaven that doesn't know that slavery is wrong." Under that canopy, Samuel Brown waits for justice. Richard Lilgross waits for his dignity. Every day we hesitate, the system wins. Vote, boycott, demand change, until the last form of slavery is gone.
What a moving speech from Seth. The next event you will see tonight is a duo interpretation. In this presentation, performers seek to move audiences and make their point by embodying characters and inviting viewers to become immersed in the act of storytelling through different narrative selections.
The performers you will see tonight are Belle Beglinger and Sabrina Clendenin. They earned a finalist award with this performance at the first tournament of the season last weekend. So please join us in welcoming them to the stage.
I need you to stand with most of your weight on your left foot.
Like this?
Good, yes. Now, your hips and shoulders twist off the axis from the hips and legs.
Sandy,
Now, cover your potato with this cloth.
please don't call my vagina a potato.
Stand with your weight on your left foot. Right arm up like this, covering your mammola.
They're not udders.
Take your gaze right and down. No, don't look at me.
I can give some context for this. Am I taking a nap in the forest? Am I taking a bath in the forest?
You're a wet baby woman, born fully formed, rising up from the sea.
Wonderful.
I don't like that tone.
I'm just tired of embodying erotic pleasures while recreating the platonic ideals of antiquity.
Put your weight on your left foot.
Women are more than the sacred, the profane.
You're Venus. Your name means to honor, to try to please.
I'm standing like this.
You can't do that. You look like a king, like a warrior. It's ridiculous.
My standing with my weight on one foot and this stupid clamshell is gonna have lasting repercussions on the way women are represented for centuries to come. It's not worth the money.
Over half of women have experienced sexual violence involving physical contact during their lifetimes.
1 in 4 women will experience completed or attempted rape, according to a CDC 2024 article.
According to a February 2025 Arts4 magazine article, the painting, Birth of Venus, was created in 1485 during the Renaissance by Sandro Botticelli.
Botticelli depicts Venus, the goddess of love, in the center, naked and in the contrapposto stance.
The nakedness and pose is meant to inspire feelings of divine love.
The beauty on the outside representing the beauty on the inside.
Botticelli's paintings of beautiful naked women inspired generations of artists afterwards.
But they all follow the script of,
The female body is beautiful and should be admired. What if I don't want to be admired?
What if I want to inspire leadership instead of blood flow to the wrong places?
The drama, Contrapposto by Rachel Carnes, imagines the dialogue between Sandro Botticelli and Venus as he used to serve a model for his painting.
The script questions the narrative that we have been fed about women's nakedness depicted in art created by men.
Pointing out that there is often more objectification than admiration.
But in the end,
Do our acts of defiance even matter?
when the painter holds the brush,
You're born of seafoam, okay? You are the watery, yielding female principle essential to the generation and balance of life.
Mars gets a helmet, he gets armor.
Your boyfriend is the god of war. You are the goddess of love.
Mars gets a shield, he gets a sword. What do I get? A stupid pink hanky to cover my...
Your potato unites the opposites of male and female affection.
I don't want to do that anymore. I'm strong, capable. Give me the same respect you give Mars.
Mars is fiery, inactive. You're more benign. We need you to seem vulnerable and open.
But I control military victories. I determine sexual success. When the people pray for good fortune and prosperity, it's me they look to. So why can't I look back out to them?
I'm growing weary of this.
I want someone to depict me as the protector with character, dignity, clothes.
Gimme, it's always the same with you. We paint you on murals, we put your face on mosaics, but that's just not good enough.
I want to be acknowledged for my contributions. I want to be equal.
You're the goddess of the sewers. The slang word for the female pedendum is named after you.
Do you even know where the clitoris is?
It's somewhere under the pink hanky.
I'm tired of this fugitive, momentary pose.
This is who you are.
You have the chance to do something different. You can depict me as a sentient being.
Look, there are plenty of girls who would be glad to have this gig.
But I'm Venus. Saturn chopped off my father's testicles and threw them into the ocean. And my father's Julian man parts mixed with the seawater, and here I
Yeah, you know what? This isn't working out. I'm just gonna pay you for the week and you can go.
am. If it were for my courage, my determination, my powerful sexual energy, there would be no Renaissance. And if there's no Renaissance, there's no Sandy Botticelli.
We have built you temples and held festivals in your honor.
And that's why in this painting of me, I want you to pick me on standing on my 2 feet, with my fist on my hip and my sword in the air. Give me a sword or I'll curse you in this stupid painting.
But my painting's really coming together. I mean, okay, not that you care, but I figured out how to show wind, okay? You see these two guys hanging out in the sky and blowing? That is fucking amazing.
Oh, Venus, queen of Cindus and Paphos, oh, spurn your beloved Cyprus and summon thee by copious incense. Oh, come to my lovely shrine.
Are you praying to yourself?
Do you want this painting to sell?
Yes.
Do you want it to be hung in museums?
What's a museum?
Do you want it to be replicated, turned into a meme? Do you want it to be made into little refrigerator magnets?
I think so.
Do you want this painting to be famous?
That's my dream.
Then pray to me. Do it.
I will.
Then I refuse to put my weight on my left foot.
Well, but I need you.
I'm leaving.
Graceful Venus, indulgent Venus,
Go on.
genial Venus.
In tears.
We implore thee, gracing the side altar.
Bending upon our knees.
No.
Do you want this painting to remember? Get on your knees.
Bending upon our knees, that thou wilt receive us into thy guardianship, hold us and not in scorn.
Say you're sorry.
For what?
I want you to apologize. Representing me this way will perpetrate the myth that women are weak and should be economically dependent on men.
Well, you are made of testicles and seawater.
Forcing me to stand around in this clamshell will naturalize the imbalance of power.
Look, you have a role to perform. Take your clothes off.
No, you take your clothes off.
By my authority.
You look faint.
Quit stalling.
Why don't you lie down on this couch?
We both know the jig is up.
You'll pay me however you want, and that's your power. But without me, you're nothing.
Did you spend your entire life studying painting? I don't think so. I'm holding the paintbrush. I mix the paints.
And in your control, I lose my subjectivity.
You're the center of the painting.
My body is not a site entitled to the men around me.
Be that as it may, but you will obey me.
Why should I?
Because I am your God. This is how it is and how it forever will be. Strapping you here forever to be gazed upon.
I want to stand straight, like this, with my shoulders back, my chin up.
God, you're beautiful.
Stop objectifying me. I want to look confidently out to the viewer. Why won't you let me?
Are you kidding? The world's not ready for that.
How do you know?
Just be a good girl. Eyes over here, down and to the right.
No, I'm not doing this.
What choice do you have?
Put my weight on my left foot, lean, hip out.
Yes. Now, hanky, cover. Raise one of your right arms, cover one of your breasts, but leave the other open. Oh, yes, that's good. Lovely.
Men control the camera. You decide the terms. You write the words. Women are the object.
What's camera eyes down and to the right, away from the viewer?
No, I'm looking at you.
I really think that painting is going to be famous one day. Yeah, but Kira, I'm going to tell you right now, I am getting really excited because this one is my favorite. We have come to our final event of the night, debate. In this style of debate, speakers are randomly assigned to argue opposing sides of a controversial issue. Debate is a true test of critical thinking and strategy, because speakers must often argue for a side that they are not personally agreed with. Despite this, the speakers must identify and present a valid and compelling case in order to win.
The team who prepares the best arguments for their side is declared the winner. In this debate, you will hear from an affirmative side and a negation side. Join me in a big round of applause as tonight, our two speakers, Avery, our returning veteran debater, and Tyler, who recently took gold in a debate at the Golden Gate season opener. Please stand by one moment as we will turn the floor over to Crowley Crump, who will be the Speaker of the House this evening.
right, I hereby call this House to order. As a reminder to the audience, debate is meant to be an interactive activity. Please not clap your hands, stomp your feet, and even say, "Hear, hear," if you think a debater is making a good point. This will help keep things exciting while also letting the debaters know what arguments you like. Let's get things started. I now recognize the debater from the affirmative team to deliver a constructive speech not to exceed 5 minutes.
5-minute speech starting now. Hello everyone, thank you for coming here to speech night. Today I am affirming this resolution: a 4-day work week would be better for society than a traditional 5-day week. So this is a value debate and we are going to be weighing it on balance. So if I can prove that implementing a 4-day work week would on balance be better for society, then I should win the debate. If I'm unable to do that and my opponent proves that it would be worse for society, then you should vote for him to win. To evaluate this round, we should view the arguments through the criterion of utilitarianism, also known as the most good for the most amount of people. So some background into this topic. In the United States, the Fair Labor Standards Act established a 40-day work week in 1940. Currently, several countries are piloting a 4-day work week, including Japan, the United Arab Emirates, and Portugal, according to a 2025 report from Newspeak. Let's get into my first contention here. Employee well-being. My first argument is that employees are burned out when they work a traditional 5-day week. A 2025 report from Forbes explains that 2/3 of workers, that's 66%, are experiencing job burnout. My next argument is that burnout is harmful. A 2025 report from the National Institute of Health describes serious consequences of burnout, including negative impacts on physical health, mental health, cognitive function, substance abuse, and decreased job satisfaction, decreased service quality, and increased turnover rates. My third argument here is that a 4-day work week is better. A 2025 report from the American Psychological Association found that across trials at more than 200 companies, workers reported better mental and physical health, life satisfaction, and a positive effect, as well as less stress, burnout, fatigue, and work-family conflict. Thus, when we consider whether a 4-day work week is better for society, we see that it is, because it significantly improves the well-being of people at both personal and professional levels. Now on to my next contention, employer benefits. My first argument is that employers benefit from higher productivity. A 2025 report from the World Economic Forum summarized the results of other 4-day pilot programs, reporting that 46% of businesses maintained productivity levels, 34 improved slightly, 15 improved significantly. This means that 95% of companies either maintained or improved their output despite only working 4 days. My second argument is that employees benefit from increased recruitment and retention. The previously cited APA report found that companies who piloted a 4-day work week saw improvements in retention and recruitment. A 2024 article by Bravo Benefits explains that it's financially and culturally better to retain employees. If companies have a higher turnover rate, it's very costly to recruit, train, and integrate new employees on a regular basis. Thus, a 4-day work week is better for society. By providing greater satisfaction to workers, the companies themselves function more effectively in terms of cost and productivity.
The negative now has 2 minutes of cross-examination to ask questions of the affirmative team.
I'd like to start off by thanking my opponent. It was an amazing first speech. Let's go into my first question. Okay. Does the study showing job burnout state any causation tied to the 5-day work week?
I don't have any information on hand that would support a causation argument, but I did provide evidence that increased burnout leads to negative health impacts, which burnout comes from working too much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Second, how long were the effects of the studies of the 4-day work week how long were the effects studied in the 4-day workweek trials and pilots that you had in both of your contentions?
I do not have any information on hand that supports the long-term effects of these pilot programs because they are new.
Okay, thank you. Last, let's go, is the 4-day workweek directly tied to employee retention?
Yes, the 4-day workweek is directly tied to employee retention. The 4-day workweek has shown to satisfy employees, and higher employee satisfaction means that they're likely to stay at the job that they're at, meaning that the 4-day workweek leads to employee retention. They want to stay where they're happy, where they're comfortable.
You're here. Thank you. No further questions.
All right, I now recognize the debater from the negative team to deliver a constructive speech not to exceed 6 minutes.
I'd like to begin by thanking everyone who's come out here today, and I'm going to kick it right off into my first counter contention, which is productivity and critical services. The claim here is that the 4-day workweek would end up lowering productivity in the industries and services which requires continuous operation. A study from the International Labor Organization found that compressed work schedules can cause fatigue and lead to lower output in healthcare, manufacturing, and the transportation sectors, while coverage must be 24/7 in these industries. And unlike office work, where you can construct the work week around this 4-day, the essential services depend on constant staffing and constant service. Cutting a day off often forces these workers to just work longer hours on the remaining day, which may increase burnout and mistakes. If productivity and safety decline in these areas, we as a whole, as a society, will suffer. My second counter contention here is going to be the economic cost. The claim is that transitioning to a 4-day workweek could harm businesses and consumers through passing on higher costs. The U.S. Chamber has warned that reducing weekly hours or increasing overtime obligations would raise employer costs via more hiring, reclassification, training, or increasing administrative burden. More broadly, economic analysis from George Mason University suggests that when firms face higher marginal labor costs, i.e. the paying overtime or reclassifying its employees, they may respond by reducing compensation or trimming workforce size or hours. And the cost of these procedures would likely be passed on to you, the consumer, or in the case of small businesses where they cannot increase their prices, businesses could fail and prices would rise across industries. The overall economy and society are worse off under this 4-day system than under the traditional 5-day system. Next, let's move on to refuting some of the affirmative cases. On their first contention, the affirmative argues that the 4-day workweek is better for employee well-being, while I argue the opposite. Moving to a 4-day workweek does not change the fact that a full-time job is 40 hours a week. This means that people would be expected to shove those 40 hours into those 4 days, doing the same amount of labor in less time, in less spread out time. A 2021 article from Forbes points out that employers will demand more dedication during those 4 days, and trying to force an out-of-date 9-to-5 workday into the 4-day model will have negative repercussions on workers, creating more stress and less time to take care of life as it happens. If we are concerned about stress and burnout, this is not the solution. On their second contention, the affirmation argues that a 4-day workweek is better for employers. this is not necessarily true. I have already shown how this would increase the burden employers have when it comes to hiring, overtime, reclassification, and overall cost. Essentially nullifying any benefit from retention, if retention occurs, and to increase the amount of burnout caused by compressing the 40 hours schedule into those 4 days. Finally, both of my opponent's contentions fail to look at the long-term results instead of the trials presented. The long-term effects of a 4-day work week would have been called into question by the American Psychological Association, and if we look at psychological phenomenon like the hedonic treadmill, we see that people often return to a set point when a change occurs that may affect their mood, meaning that over time, the effects that this change would have on an employee's mood would eventually return back to the set normal, nullifying the benefits of the 4-day work week. And thank you for listening to my speech.
The affirmative now has 2 minutes of cross-examination to ask questions of the negative team.
All right, Tyler. My first question for you is, wouldn't staggered scheduling or hiring additional staff prevent the problem you're describing with service coverage in essential industries?
If you were to hire more staff, what you would be doing, and staggering schedules and moving around schedules and hiring more staff, what you would be doing is just shifting the responsibility of work onto the administrators of these industries rather than the employees. It's a shifting of the problem.
Okay. And then my next question for you is, my evidence from the APA reports that most companies would choose to work with the 4-day model, but you argue that it would be bad for them. Do you have any examples where businesses failed from implementing this model of 4-day work weeks?
Although I don't have any examples in front of me, I think it's clear that if a business were to fail by implementing this 4-day model, they would be more likely to revert to the 5-day than fall on their sword and die.
Okay. And my last question for you is, if burnout is already a problem under the 5-day system, and a 4-day system has the chance to address that problem, isn't that beneficial for society?
My argument here is that the 4-day system isn't an opportunity to address burnout, but instead it would increase burnout in these employment fields.
All right. Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I now recognize the debater from the affirmative team to deliver a rebuttal speech not to exceed 3 minutes.
All right. Starting on my next word. All right. First, let's look at my case. On my first contention, Tyler argues that a full-time job is 40 hours and that employees will be expected to work longer hours with a condensed work week. But even if shifts are slightly longer, individuals will still receive an extra 24 hours to handle any business they have, spend the time however they want. That's a whole extra day of folding their laundry, of driving the kids to school, spending time with their children. It's still beneficial to people's lives, which with our way mechanism, we are trying to figure out what is beneficial for most. As I provided in my first contention, the 4-day model has been trialed at over 200 companies, and employees have experienced positive results such as better mental and physical health, life satisfaction, less stress, burnout, fatigue. So he's saying that the 4-day model would bring the opposite of this. Well, we have trials that prove that it's good for society. You're here. So on my second contention, he argues that the 4-day work week would not be better as it would increase the burden employers have. However, in my second contention, I state clear that this model would be beneficial for employers as keeping a happy employee negates hiring and training costs. In my first contention, I also stated how productivity either remained the same or increased within this model, therefore making overtime costs void. Now let's look on to his arguments alone. On their first counter contention, which was about productivity and critical services, yes, there are jobs that require continuous operation and that do require consistent staffing, but most high demanding jobs are already working within this condensed schedule, like for example nurses who only work a certain amount of days a week to avoid burnout and stress. Furthermore, companies can stagger scheduling so they operate 5 days a week, but employees only work 4 days a week. Because most individuals don't have high demanding jobs, companies can work strategically. It's their job. If you're taking a management position, this is what you're signing up for. Instead, a 4-day work week would be beneficial for most, meeting our way mechanism of utilitarianism. And on to their second counter-contention, which was on economic costs. The negative argues that transitioning to a 4-day work week would harm businesses and consumers through higher costs. However, 95% of companies maintained or improved their output despite only working 4 days. So any raised costs that would come from any problem that the negative is suggesting would quickly return to normal or be eaten by corporations rather than pushing higher prices onto a consumer that wouldn't buy it. Thank you.
I now recognize the debater from the negative team to deliver a rebuttal speech not to exceed 5 minutes.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out here tonight. This is going to be my final speech. So just a thank you for being interested in this community. Let's go straight into the affirmative's first contention. The benefits we see from companies which trial the 4-day work week are not tested long term, where I believe that the benefits would dissolve completely, as I've said before. But even so, without the burnout caused by compressing the work week isn't something which can be fixed with an extra 24 hours. These work days block out people's ability to do basic chores throughout the week, compounding them until the weekend when the person is supposed to have time off. Instead, they're now making up for lost time. Let's go to the affirmation's second contention. My opponent seems to be doubling down on their sources here. However, her sources come from trials of the 4-day work week combined with some basic business owning principles. However, my sources actually analyze the cost directly of a 4-day work week on a business, and my sources are clear in claiming that it would have a heavy cost, which would not be outweighed by the mostly flat production boost seen. Finally, let's look at my arguments. On my first counter contention, my opponent claims since most are not part of high demand jobs, the benefits to the others outweighs them. However, we all depend on these essential jobs, and any disturbance to them, however, any disturbance to them would be felt by all of us. Furthermore, there are plenty of high-demand, essential jobs which are not on a condensed schedule, such as 911 operators and mail transporters. Often, these are the jobs which make those who do have condensed schedules' lives easier. And if they are too burnt out and tired to do what they must, the whole system of essential workers would stop functioning. On my second counter contention, the ability for companies to maintain their prices despite the raise of their costs may be possible for large companies with huge profits. However, the small businesses will feel it the most. Even if they are able to maintain productivity through having a 4-day work week without having an extra day of business, they will have to either hire more people or cut their profit by closing down an extra day. Plus, most small businesses cannot raise their prices to compete with these big companies, so they cannot offset the extra costs done to them. To summarize my case, not only does the 4-day work week create stress on employees and increases costs to companies, it both stresses our essential services and small businesses. But also, any possible positive effects which are derived from the shift would quickly fade, leaving only the harm in its wake. And that's why you should unequivocally vote for me, the negative. Thank you.
I now recognize the debater from the affirmative team to deliver a rebuttal speech not to exceed 3 minutes.
All right, this is the final speech that I get to give tonight. It's the last one you get to hear, so make sure you are listening to me. Giving someone an extra day to complete tasks will help with work-life balance. It doesn't matter if it cuts into your weekend, because the whole construct in which that exists in will change. It doesn't matter, you're still getting extra time to complete what you're doing. As of right now, individuals who work 9 to 5s already feel the impacts of not having energy to give into their life. Parents don't have energy to pay attention to their kids or to pay attention to their health. Giving them extra time will resolve this, making it better for everyone, which is how we're weighing this debate. So again, like I said, burnout can lead to negative impacts on physical health, your mental health, cognitive function, substance, and decreased job satisfaction. He said that heavy costs can't be outweighed by a flat productivity boost. But we don't have any numbers to support how grand this cost would be. Therefore, we have no way of knowing how detrimental it would be to the pockets of employers and consumers. It's simply a generalization that doesn't apply in this debate. Employee retention is caused from an individual feeling happy in where they are and with their workplace. So if small and large businesses just simply treated their workers with decency, this cost is offset of having to hire more people. As I mentioned, there is a precedent that exists for emergency responders, nurses who already work a non-traditional method to avoid their burnout. The negative arguments are simply based on probable, not certain causes. So therefore, we have no way of measuring whether or not it would be negative for everyone in society or just the corporations that are having to do a little extra work. So if I have proven on balance today that implementing the 4-day work week would be better for society as it strengthens workers and businesses alike, I strongly urge your vote for the affirmative. Thank you.
All right, folks. Can I get one last big round of applause for the MJC Speech Debate team? All right, so here's the cool thing. Debates actually do have winners and losers. So we're going to do an audience applause meter to determine the winner of this debate. So at the end of the evening, you feel that the negation has done their job and convinced you that we should oppose this resolution. Let me hear you now. All right, that was 101 decibels. However, if at the end of the debate you feel that the affirmative has done their job, we should support this resolution. Let me hear you now. 106 decibels. That's it. Good night, everyone. Drive safe, and thank you for coming out.